Hey gang, today we're looking at the new Scourge of Ghyran, the Helsmiths of Hashut.
For the second day of Grotmas, Games Workshop did not give us a partridge in a pear tree, so instead, I bring you Pancreas No Work to help explain the Helsmiths' new detachment. So who are the Helsmiths of Hashut, and what do they do?
They're probably the last army in the setting to be gifting you anything, unless you consider being put in chains a gift. For those of you unaware, the Helsmiths of Hashut are dwarfs, but evil. They like to do all the fun things dwarfs do, but in an evil way. They have some of the finest crafts, weapons, and armor in the entire setting, but they make them by jamming demons into things. They worship ancestor gods, but the one they like is a chaos god who might be lying about everything sympathetic in his backstory. They like to dig through mountains, but they usually have the slaves do that.
That's some classic Warhammer behavior, hey. Lil Rotound eggy boys doing the old spooky demon things on top of the diggy diggy holery. Now moving on to the new stuff, Scourge of Ghyran brings us some new battle formations, accursed devices, and a couple of warscrolls.
Let's look at the two battle formations first, Domination Force and Industrial Polluters. Domination Force's passive, Dominion Hexes, lets your models count as having double their health for the purposes of the Power Through command. Usually you gotta have more health than the unit you're powering through in order for it to actually do anything. If you want to move through them, you gotta be healthier. But with this formation, you basically pretend you have twice as much health as you actually do. Aside from dealing a nifty little D3 of damage easier, this can let you disrupt your enemy's battle plan far more effectively. Bulldoze through your enemy's battle line to get their archers behind them. Chase a wizard hiding behind far stronger forces by just moving through those forces. Power Through lets you move through enemy units, and now you can do so more effectively. The caveat is that it's only the non-hobgoblin units that can do this. Those poor fellows aren't able to pretend they have an overshield. But a close examination of the army reveals that non-hobgoblin units is a fancy way of saying the entire rest of the army, so that ain't much of a downside. It also comes into effect when the enemy tries to power through you, which can hard stop them from reaching your own backline. Industrial Polluter's passive, meanwhile, Smoke and Smog, simply subtracts 1 from the shooting rolls that target your units that are within 9 inches of a Helsmiths of Hashut war machine. This ranges from your big main character unit on the brass bowl to your artillery to your walking brass bowl. There's not too much to say about it because it's just making your enemy worse at shooting you, but that's a powerful if simple ability. Do you hate Carriage and Overlord players for being dwarfs but wrong? Then take this and enjoy watching them cry. We've also got ourselves something new called Accursed devices. These are special enhancements you can give a war machine unit when you're making your army, though you can only pick one. Greed Pistons lets you roll an extra dice when you charge, though you do have to discard one of the dice before you resolve the charge. Breath of Contempt lets you pick up to 3 enemy units in combat with the war machine, roll a d3 for each, and deal that many wounds as long as you roll a 2 up. And the Overdrive switch lets you add 1 to your weapon's hit rolls, but any hit rolls of 1 cause 1 damage to the war machine. As a certified Skaven enjoyer, this one's my favorite.
It's a shame you can only bring 1 though. Greed Piston sounds like how I want my Death Guard so I can get into melee faster and bonk people with my stinky sticks, but then having the D3 2+ roll to inflict 2 or 3 mortal damage with Breath of Contempt is also very tempting. For that end of turn psych, you thought I was done. I do see why you like Overdrive though. It's once per turn, not per game, which is quite nice, so you do get the extra bonks in during that phase, plus the extra unblockable damage on unmodified hit rolls. Then moving on to the other page, we have 2 new war scrolls, 1 for a character and 1 for infantry.
The infantry one is the Scourge of Ghyran Infernal cohort.
Even the frontline warriors of the Zarjon war hosts wield weapons imbued with demonic power. Though drilled to be disciplined and ruthless, proximity to this dark fire has nevertheless twisted these Duardin. It has heightened the most malign elements of their psyche and ensured that they meet every enemy with a sneering contempt, trampling them into the burnt earth to the sound of striking gongs and their own cruel laughter.
The unit's gong carriers are now tokens, and you get 1 for every musician the unit has. If you use the rally command on them, you can make 2 more d6 rolls per token. The gongs are a little cursed, however, so for every natural 1 you roll, 1 of them dies. This only kills the musician, so half your unit won't evaporate if you try to heal it. No need to worry on that front. Once per turn at the end of a turn, they can also choose to take up to 3 casualties in exchange for healing a nearby non-hobgoblin unit 3 health, or bringing back 3 models to an infantry unit. And their final ability is another passive. For a quick summary of the army's main ability, Helsmiths of Hashut units get demonic power points after putting tokens on terrain pieces, and their models can have up to 3 each. With this unit, you get a 6-up ward save for 1 power point given to them, a 5-up for 2, and for 3 you keep the 5-up with a 4-up ward save against spells, prayers, and manifestation abilities. The Scourge of Ghyran War Despot, meanwhile, has 2 different abilities.
The Lords of Ziggurat's royal clans are also its commanders in times of war. Swollen by dark power and clad in imposing armor, they see their thrall hosts as extensions of their own conquering ambition. Underlings are driven on relentlessly, expected to triumph or perish, while the despot's rivals fall beneath their blades. Weapons acquired at a terrible price and empowered by the most dangerous demonic essences.
Once a turn, he can pick an enemy unit within 12 inches as well as an allied unit in combat with it. The enemy unit takes D3 damage on a 2-up roll of a D3 because he's just shooting them. The friendly unit can retreat while still being able to shoot and charge later, add 2 inches to retreat abilities, and ensures that no mortal damage is taken on a retreat. It's like a commissar for the Helsmiths, only somehow friendlier because the only one he's shooting is the enemy. He can also let nearby non-Hobgrout units act as if they have a demonic power point as long as he has at least one, with the range increasing the more points he has. So with all this said, how good might this Grotmus gift be? I'm no meta expert by any means, but I am familiar with getting my ass beat because I think something was a good idea, so I have some ideas on what's actually a good idea nowadays. Nothing teaches you like failure after all, and my final grade is that yeah, I think it's pretty damn good. Dominion Hexes sounds great on paper, and as far as getting that free D3 of Mortals goes, that's great. Yeah, it doesn't work on Hobgrots, but who cares? Those exist to die, so other things don't. There is a problem with actually powering through an enemy unit, however. You have some faster units like the fellow riding the big metal monster, as well as the bull centaurs and anointed sentinels. But for all your infantry, you've got 4 inches of movement. Depending on enemy positioning and how many of them are in the unit that you're facing, you might not actually be able to move through them very effectively. It also doubling your health for the purposes of power through on defense is big though, and I can imagine that ability forcing a lot of opponents into fights they'd rather ignore or at least turn around and deal with later. Smoke and Smog, meanwhile, is a bit boring, but it's simple and gets the job done. It will force you to play somewhat predictably, it must be said, needing all your fellas to be either by your artillery or your giant bowl construct. Even used proactively by primarily focusing on using the Dominator engine to protect your infantry can be a bit tricky, since it's 2 inches faster at 6 inches of movement to the rest of your infantry's 4 inches of movement. Depending how your advance rolls go, this may end up not working for some units you really want it to cover. It also makes an obvious target. How do we get rid of the -1 to hit? Aim all the cannons at the giant brass monster. That said, it's still a solid buff for basically nothing beyond the price of needing to own one of the models that gives the buff. Boring doesn't mean ineffective after all. And I will say that while I'm not typically the best at getting into the nitty-gritty of what's the mathematical best thing in the meta, these 2 battle formations are the simplest to get value out of by far. All of the other ones require a specific unit to have 3 demonic power points. The 2 Grotmus ones just need to be picked and you get immediate value, no setup or anything really required. The other ones may occasionally be more explosive in the value with what they can do, but these are simple, to the point, and require no effort to get use out of on some level. The Accursed devices are a bit of a mixed bag, largely because your war machines are limited to big monsters and artillery. Flat out, only the overdrive switch is going to matter for your artillery piece. If your rocket bombard is in combat with multiple enemy units, it's probably going to die no matter what, and if you're charging it into melee, then I'm sorry, but nothing you do is going to save it from your poor decisions. An extra die when charging can let your Dominator engines rush into melee far more effectively, however, albeit still with the chance of rolling 3 1s and feeling silly. It can, however, cause your infantry to fall even farther behind for the purposes of Smoke and Smog, since it does require the entirety of a unit to be within 9 inches of the model to work. Overdrive Switch and Breath of Contempt, I would imagine, are more of a personal preference and playstyle kind of thing, as well as based on your opponent's army. They all cost nothing to take, so in terms of point cost efficiency, that's a non-issue. If you want your melee monster to be able to damage multiple units at once because you threw them into a horde of Skaven, take the Breath of Contempt Accursed device. If you want it to really hurt one thing and don't mind potentially taking damage, go for the Overdrive Switch. The units I like without any caveats. Being able to essentially trade models to make a unit you may consider to be worth keeping more is a really nice feature for the Infernal cohort, as is getting a semi-free ward save of increasing strength just by using your army rule, which you'll be doing regardless. The Sanctified Gongs are good too. Rally is always nice because resurrection abilities are great, and it combines really well with them being able to trade off their own models into other units. With how many dice you'll be rolling, you'll probably get a 1 eventually, and this ability won't be around for too long, but it can come in clutch, or if nothing else, make it easier to restore other units back to full strength. The War Despot is just a nice and comfortable model meanwhile. He makes retreating easier and can cause enemies mortal damage for minimal effort, but most importantly, he lets the rest of your models act as if they have at least 1 demonic power point if they're nearby them. Those are the core of your army rule, and a unit having them can provide them with either handy buffs or let them just do better in combat, so by giving him at least 1, he can cause anything close to him to automatically perform better. I'd say this Grotma special is worth at least giving a try. It's easy as far as the battle formations go, the devices you can give your monsters or artillery can at least potentially pack one hell of a punch, and the 2 units can really help alleviate either casualties or with utilizing the army's main mechanic. Santa may have given the Helsmiths coal, but for them that's the best gift you can give, short of more Hobgrot slaves.
Thanks, Pancreas. I definitely learned a lot. I've been looking into starting an AOS army, so this has definitely edged me towards the Chaos Dwarves. If you've used this attachment, let us know how you liked it, or other thoughts and feelings in the comments. Like, sub, comment, all of that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks!